Good afternoon, everybody. I guess this is our last meeting for 2024, at least in person. We certainly have our Christmas party this Saturday, but this is the last formal meeting, so we'll make it real long. Okay, we'll be here till 2 o'clock or so, cover a lot of items, but hopefully not. For those of you coming in on Zoom, Kathy, how are you? Having lunch? Okay, that's all right. We see Skip, how are you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
All right.
Merry Christmas.
Roger?
Hi, have a Merry Christmas also. Thanks.
All right. And Kathy? Or Sue? I'm sorry. Sue, excuse me.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're having a great day.
All right. Well, welcome to our meeting. We have one guest, which is Nita, and Janet will be introducing her more formally in a little bit, but welcome to our meeting. So with that, I think we'll get ready to go here. So start off with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
So Walt is handling the mic today, so he will be right at the ready whenever somebody is speaking, so that our folks can hear when they zoom in.
His mic's not turned on.
So we'll get that taken care of. All right, Ken, you have agreed to provide us with a moment of inspiration, right?
Well, we're in the Christmas season, so I have one quote I'd like to make from a book. It's written by a man by the name of Paul, and he doesn't have a last name. And here's what he says. Whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is gracious, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about those things. A very good thought for the Christmas season. That's from John of Tarsus, from his letter to the Galatians. And then I had two others that I thought were kind of interesting. This is from Booker T. Washington, and he says there are two ways of exerting one's strength. One is pushing down, and the other is pulling up. A great thing for a leadership group like Kiwanis. And then another one, in case we ever think our egos are getting a little bit too big. It's this, and it's by a Nobel laureate, but I don't know the name, is Naguib Mahfouz, and I'm probably killing the name, but anyhow, he said a good thing. He says, you can tell whether a man is clever by his answers, and you can tell whether a man is wise by his questions. So there's the inspiration for today.
And thank you so much. That's fine inspiration for today, for the holiday season. We certainly do appreciate that. I just a word about Ken. I never knew Ken until, I don't know, a year or two ago or so. We kind of through the club knew each other, but how relationships develop. We've kind of got together and do a breakfast now and then and find great conversations in our time together. So I would encourage you all to what do we say? We want to connect with the people we know, reconnect with the people that we have lost touch with, and build connections to new people. And I think if we do that and keep our network big and wide, life's a good thing. So I appreciate our time together, Ken. Yep. All right, so this day in history, got to have a little bit of perspective on what happened here. 1620, the Mayflower landed. Um, 1865, slavery was abolished with the adoption of the 13th Amendment. So that was a big one. And today, for anybody who didn't know it, it's Flake Appreciation Day, which is Snowflake Appreciation Day. And the other one, this is hard to believe, there is actually a day for this, International Answer the Phone Like Buddy the Elf Day. So they're actually, I Googled it. They are actually days. And, it's on the internet. It's got to be true, right? Yeah. So, all right. Shannon, I'll turn it over to you if you'd like to introduce our speaker today.
That's okay. I'm not going to speak very long.
Just put that in here.
All right. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. And one of the reasons why it's so, starting my Kiwanis journey in Florida, the Kiwanis organization there had associated themselves with another organization similar to yours. It was Healthy Families Florida, and it became a big partnership, and it still is ongoing. And so not only do they have Healthy Families Florida, but they had another organization that was geared just towards babies.
Right.
And it's such a wonderful partnership, watching them do things, and it's really, I mean, that's what we're about. We're about children. And so what Tina does is wonderful. When I came into the area, John Kennedy was I believe he was the president of the club at the time. He was paying out of his own pocket for you to be part of our organization.
Oh, wow.
And I was always impressed with that. And we've lost him, but I always felt as though that he had a special place for your organization with Kiwanis.
I remember that.
And so I like the fact that our governor, Tom Harp, has brought you back into the limelight, and wanting to promote that with his Bucks for Babies.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, it's my pleasure to introduce Tina Wida from the St. Luke's Nurse and Family Partnership.
Thank you, Janet. Yes, Tom is a huge supporter of Nurse Family Partnership. Is anybody here familiar with Nurse Family Partnership? A little bit? Okay, so I start from the beginning then. So Nurse Family Partnership is an evidence-based home visitation program where pregnant moms get paired with a registered nurse who's bachelor's prepared, and that nurse visits them in their home from pregnancy as early as possible until the child turns 2 years old. And the goals of the program are to ensure that mom has a healthy pregnancy, make sure that we're screening her for things that could impact her pregnancy, such as depression. We do blood pressure screenings to look for complications. As a nurse, we do physical assessment, check those kinds of things. We screen for depression, intimate partner violence, substance use, all kinds of things that would impact the pregnancy. And the reason we do all those screenings is we want to make sure that they're connected to all the services that they need during the time that they're pregnant. Our second goal is the health and development of the baby. So we're doing regular developmental screenings. We talk a lot about attachment and bonding, protective factors, things that protect the child against child abuse and help the parents with parenting, positive parenting. And again, we're continuing to watch mom for postpartum complications, postpartum depression. You'll all notice, well, the election's over now, but one of the big topics was around maternal health and maternal mortality. And postpartum depression is one of the things that was brought up during those discussions. So they're in that postpartum period. And then after that, we continue to work with that mom through all the different developmental milestones, all the way up to 2 years of age. To be eligible for Nurse Family Partnership, you have to meet some criteria. This is not just something here at St. Luke's. It is across the nation and even around the world. There's Nurse Family Partnership in some of the Aboriginal communities in Australia. They're in the United Kingdom, Canada, the US Virgin Islands. They're on many reservations here within the United States. So we're serving a very diverse group of parents. Here in Pennsylvania, we just added some agencies. So I think we serve 47 of the 65 counties. There's some of the more western rural counties that are really difficult to serve, but we're in the big cities, Harrisburg, Philly, Pittsburgh, of course, the Lehigh Valley. So here at St. Luke's, we are contracted with NFP to serve all of Lehigh and Northampton counties. We are funded by OCDEL, which is the Office of Child Development and Early Learning, and they provide the grant for most of our budget. And then we also have private philanthropy, individual grants that we receive for different things. And we do a very small portion of Medicaid billing. We get a whopping $77 per visit, and only after the baby's born, and only if they're on Medicaid. So if they have private insurance or CHIP, we can't, it's not a billable service. The other criteria, obviously, is they must be pregnant and meet income criteria. So if a client is on medical assistance or is receiving WIC services, they automatically qualify for us because their thresholds are lower than ours. I was just looking at the 2024 poverty guidelines because I'm getting ready to redo them for next year once the guidelines come out for 2025. But if you have a family of three, so say you have a couple, married couple, and they're pregnant, that's a family of three, they can actually earn up to $66,000 a year, which is quite generous when you think about where the thresholds are for Medicaid and WIC. A family of three living on $66,000 a year is not easy either. So our third goal is the economic self-sufficiency of the family. I think the last we looked at our data, the average income of a client was below $6,000 a year. So either they were unemployed, they were a student, or they were in a job that they were making, they weren't working full-time, making minimum wage. So we want to make sure that our teens, we want to keep them in school. We want to expose them to opportunities to further their education or training in the trades industry. College isn't for everyone, and we recognize that. And the way we do that is we really sit down with them and talk about, okay, we're here with you to your child's 2, but where do you see yourself 5 years from now? What does your family look like? What are the things you want? We do vision boards where they cut, a picture of a house out or a picture of a car out. Things, and then we talk about, all right, let's break that goal down and what do we do to get there? So the nurse is doing a lot of things outside of what you would consider traditional nursing. We are very data driven. Our nurses, they have a lot of documentation, but it has to be because it's evidence-based. The clinical trials were done back in the 70s. So the model has been implemented for over 40 years. I think we're upwards of 45 now. So it's a tried and true model that they've put together. And in the beginnings of Nurse Family Partnership, it was only for first-time moms. We have now expanded eligibility here at St. Luke's where we can enroll any mom, regardless of if it's her first child or her 10th child. And I'm not exaggerating when I say 10th child, because well, maybe 10 I am. I think we have one that had 7, and this was her 8th child. So we do have some pretty large families out there. And then the other requirement for traditional NFP was that the client had to be enrolled by the 28th week of pregnancy, which is 7 months. And now we can enroll them all the way up until they deliver the baby. It's not always easy because we've already signed somebody up and then they went to labor that night. So our goal of a healthy pregnancy really, we didn't have time to work on that. So the earlier we get them enrolled, the better. But we have the ability to still have an impact because the majority of the program is after delivery. Not that we want to ignore pregnancy, but we still have a lot we can do in those subsequent 2 years. So it's we have the ability, and I think there's 16 sites around the country that are able to do this, and they're conducting clinical trials and studies to see if we're going to have the same impact on these families as we had on the first-time moms when we first started. So we've been part of this project since they did the initial pilots back starting in 2017. And families that have other children or enrolled late make up about a third of our census. So to give you an idea, we are funded for 300 families in the 2 counties. That gives us 12 full-time nurses with each carrying a caseload of approximately 25 clients. They do about 12 to 15 visits a week. They're about an hour long, and they're driving a lot. A lot. The other thing that we have here at St. Luke's that I think is unique and not every NFP has is we have a program that runs concurrently with us. It's called Moving Beyond Depression. And it is the first of its kind at St. Luke's, where we have a licensed clinical social worker that does counseling with clients in their home. So if they've been identified as having depression, our social worker with Moving Beyond Depression goes in and can do 15 in-home visits, get them connected to counseling outside when their time is over, and really have an impact on the mental health of that mom in early stages during pregnancy, postpartum, whenever we've identified that there's an issue. Postpartum depression can start up to a year after you give birth. So with the nurse in there monitoring those things, it gives us a resource. Mental health, access to mental health care right now in our area and across the nation is very hard. Many providers don't take medical assistance. The ones that do have waiting lists. And COVID has had this impact on the public, and I'm sure you're aware that sometimes it's virtual, which isn't always the best modality when you're trying to make improvements in mental health. Sitting down with somebody eye to eye is definitely going to be more impactful. So those who do seek counseling, if it's virtual, they tend to not stick with it. And we have a lot that just refuse to seek care. So the nurse continues to monitor, continues to do what they can in the home for that mom. We have all kinds of projects. We've been working with the Kiwanis here in Easton for a very long time, and Allentown, both Allentown and Allentown Northeast. We apply for a foundation grant with Allentown Kiwanis every year, and they fund our Child Abuse Prevention Month. We get books that we give out to every family, and they talk about things like regulation and how to calm yourself, how to recognize your baby's cues so you're not getting frustrated and shaking that baby. The model's been proven to decrease child abuse by 48%. So April is a big month for us. So we use that grant to, and that book goes with a lesson. Everything goes with a lesson. Early literacy is huge. Every family gets one of the Kiwanis learning guides. They get one of each. The learning is everywhere. Every day I learn through play. And then when they're graduating our program at 2, they get kindergarten, Here I Come. So we've worked with Easton Kiwanis for years on getting those books, and Janet's working with me again to replenish our stock. So I feel like I'm cheating a little bit because we work with Rotary clubs too. Do I have to leave now?
We got one return.
The Morning Star Rotary in Bethlehem actually had a member that was a former NFP nurse, and she brought us into their fold, and they have developed she passed away, and they have developed a scholarship in her honor. So twice a year, they take applications for our clients that are in school that need help with tuition or a computer or different things. So they've been really instrumental. They paid for GED tests for another client who's now looking for CNA training. So it's those little things that sometimes they need just to help catapult them over that hump that they're in. Some other projects we work on is every fall, families that are in need, we do a coat drive. So we're always looking for grant opportunities, funding to purchase new coats for families that are in need. And we are wrapping up, well, probably I've wrapped up my part of it, but the nurses are in the middle of our Winter Wishes project. And we partner with different organizations around the Valley to provide a gift for every client and baby up to age 2 that's enrolled in our program. So our current enrollment, we have a nurse that's new and she's building her caseload. So we're running at about 282 clients right now. So imagine collecting 282 gifts, getting them out to the nurses, and then the nurses get to play Santa and distribute those. We call it Winter Wishes, though, although I said Santa is the commercialized Christmas. We do recognize that we have clients that are Muslim, we have clients that are Jewish, we have clients that are Jehovah's Witness and don't really celebrate holidays. And we ensure that they know it's a donation, not necessarily a gift, because we have some that wouldn't accept it. So we call it Winter Wishes just so we can recognize this time of year in a way that's respectful of all the different belief systems that we serve. We have 2 nurses that speak Spanish because we have a high volume of Spanish only speaking clients. Every one of our English speaking nurses has at least 2 clients that speak a language other than English, and they use translation services for that. We have 1 nurse that speaks Gujarati, Urdu, some Arabic, and some French. And we've actually had several clients that she's used Urdu, Gujarati with. Gujarati is her native language. And she went into the home and the parents spoke fluent Gujarati. So when we interviewed her, I'm like, I don't think we'll ever have a need for that. Well, I was wrong. We have some Creole speaking clients right now too. So we do have a very diverse population base that we're serving. And there's no age limit. Our youngest client we ever enrolled was 12. She delivered at 13. And our oldest was 47 with natural twins. And she was petrified because she was unmarried, very high risk because of her age. And they did wonderfully. They did wonderfully, but she was afraid. She was alone. She was scared. So we have no age limit. We don't turn anybody away. Is there any questions? I feel like I've left something out. Yes.
Is there any of the greatest number of births for the clients that you work with?
Oh, that's a great question.
Since you're data driven.
We are data driven, but I can tell you that I haven't looked at that number in quite a while. I can tell you that we had a lot of COVID babies when people were shut in. So I tend to think a lot of times we're busy with births in the fall. And I look at my office staff who has to enroll all these new babies. And the last couple months have been really high. I think the winter months is conception months. And then we tend to see the referrals spike. And then we see the births coming in the fall. We're taking referrals. The referrals that are coming in right now are due usually, they're like between June and August. We're starting to see August due dates coming in already. But yeah, that it can vary and it depends. But we do notice that fall tends to be busy with births.
Tina, how do you, I know you start the relationship once you find out that the person is expecting.
Right.
How do you end the relationship? I mean, so they have the baby and you're still involved with them. How long do you stay involved with them?
Till the child turns 2 years old. And at about 18 months, we start talking about how they're going to proceed once we're gone. Does that mean referring them to another program such as Early Head Start or Parents as Teachers? Or is there any other services? Does the child have developmental delays? Do they need a relationship with early intervention? Can we connect them with, things that are they going to need beyond when we're there? That would serve Parents as Teachers serves up to age 5 because it's a school readiness driven program. Early Head Start goes up to 3, and then Head Start does 4 and 5 leading up. We talk a lot about kindergarten readiness and things like that. So the last 6 months, we're going through a big packet we call transition packet. And we're leaving all kinds of resources for them so they have something to go to once we're gone. that doesn't mean they still don't reach out to their nurse. They still do. And they'll say, hey, this happened. What do I do?
Yeah.
And the nurses aren't going to say, well, you know, you're not enrolled. They'll connect them to a
It
resource.
seems like there would be relationships that are hard to.
Yeah, it's
just
very relationship based. And a lot of the things that the clients are divulging to the nurses is very, they've had a lot of trauma
Mhm.
in their histories. And that impacts their ability to parent. And, we all had parents and we all loved things they did and hated things they did. And we said, I'm not going to do that when I'm a parent. But we have those conversations like, what was the time in your life where you felt the safest? And where was the time in your life where you didn't? And what control do you have that over now being a parent? We do a life history timeline and we draw like a little path on a paper. And we ask them to identify 3 times in their life that stand out to them and why. Many times it's a trauma, but sometimes it's something really positive, that they had a great relationship with a teacher or something really positive happened in their life. So we try to find those positive areas and leverage the positive to kind of, you've all heard about ACEs, I'm sure, adverse childhood experiences. We have to leverage the positive experiences too, to balance that out. Because studies are showing that you can have an ACE score of 4 or above, which is high. But if you have positive experiences that counteract that, that's more important than the number you have that are negative. So our nurses, we're a very strength-based approach to what we do. They leave every visit and they have to write an affirmation on the paper they leave with the client. What did they observe during that visit that's going to leave, they're going to leave that. We have a male nurse and he went to a visit in the nick of time. The client was having a bad day, very depressed, tried to cancel. He persuaded her to see him. And when he left, they put a note on the mirror. They wrote it together and it said, I am enough, I am worthy, and I am loved or lovable. And he said, I want you to read that to yourself every day. And he texted her 2 days later and she texted him and said, thank you. I needed to hear those things. So the nurses are really, really trying to help them overcome these things in their lives that make them feel not worthy and that they're not enough.
Yes. Skip? Go ahead.
Yes. I know there's a nurse shortage nowadays. How difficult is it to get nurses and what's the pay comparison between what you can pay your nurses and what they may make in a hospital?
Okay. So we have people calling us all the time to want to work for Nurse Family Partnership. So we typically do not have trouble filling these positions. And our nurses come to us from the labor floor, from pediatrics, from mental health backgrounds. So I would say that for us here at St. Luke's, we don't have a problem filling those positions. And one of the reasons for that is the advantage of being with a large network like we're able to provide salaries that are comparable to working inpatient. If the Nurse Family Partnership is being run through a health department or some other charitable foundation, sometimes they don't have the ability to offer those higher salaries. I know there was a location in the state where they were offering like $42,000 for a bachelor's prepared nurse. You're going to have trouble finding somebody to do this work for that salary. So it all depends on the structure of the organization that's implementing it. But I feel very blessed being here at St. Luke's because we have the ability to ensure that the nurses are compensated comparably to if they were in the hospital.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yes,
I spoke to one of your nurses once.
you did.
Yeah.
That's great.
Very good experience.
Yes.
But I found it interesting that you advocated when a woman is pregnant, to actually read to the baby
Mhm.
while they were pregnant.
Yes.
Play very soft music,
Mhm.
not rap or something. And I thought that was very nice and enlightening.
It is. We actually talk a lot these days too about the interference of the phone and the technology. We have this cute little cartoon and there's two moms sitting on a bench. One's reading a book and her child's reading a book, and the other one, they have phones. And the one with the phone, the mom is saying to the other one, how do you get your child to read? So, you know, we talk a lot about distracted parenting because of the cell phone. And we really push the reading, you know, how many days a week do you talk, read, or sing to your baby? These are things the United Way has pushed in their promotions and stuff. And it is that verbal interaction and that narration of your day that builds the brains in that first 1,000 days of life. So yes, we do start advocating for reading. We take books out through a literacy grant we get. And every book has a lesson with it. It's not just here's a book. This one might be a rhyming book, and we're going to talk about how the up and down and the I'm not a poet, but the pentameter of it and the pace of it builds the brain. And how you don't have to read the words, because we have clients that can't read. You don't have to read the words. You can point at pictures and you can talk about things. So we really try to gear it. We meet the client where they're at and at their ability and skill level, and we build from there. We have some clients that are very into research, and we can give them a research article and they'll love it. And then we have others that can't read. They need infographics, things with pictures. So the nurse really has 25 clients that learn 25 different ways, and we're able to adapt it for each family.
Hey, do your nurses ever, oh, I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead.
I was gonna say, how often do your nurses meet with your client?
Depends on the need. I'd say the average is twice a month. But we do have clients that the nurse will be going weekly. And sometimes if they get a job, it's really hard to fit our nurse in. So sometimes they'll back off and maybe do every 3 weeks. Or what they'll do is they'll do a virtual visit and then an in-person visit. They'll break it up like that. Our nurses have the ability to flex that schedule to meet whatever meets their needs.
Case by case.
Yes, it's a case-by-case thing.
And how long does did I hear you earlier, was like a typical appointment's an hour?
About an hour. Some are longer, depending on what's going on in the home, if they're in crisis. If you're walking in and they're suicidal, you're going to be there a while. Yeah. You know, and we always talk about the doorknob conversation, because you've had a wonderful visit. You've taught them all kinds of wonderful things, and they sign your paper and you're getting to walk out the door and they say, oh, by the way, my boyfriend hit me last night. Okay, I have to sit back down. So, you know, I feel like clients do that all the time. Like they get to the end of the visit and then they lay something big on you. So that happens as well.
Talked a lot about the mother, and obviously, you know, is focused on the mother,
Mhm.
pregnancy, and the child.
Right.
Is there what interaction do you typically have or try to have with the father?
As much as they will allow, and as much as they will participate. We have fathers that are very engaged, and we have fathers that sit there on their phones, don't look up, and we have other fathers that are just not involved at all. So if they're there, and the client can have anybody they want at the visits. It could be their mother, it could be a friend, it could be the father. We don't limit who can be there. And then we try our best to pull them in, but fathers are hard, because my wise old grandmother told me once that a woman becomes a mother the day she becomes pregnant, because she has to change everything. The way she eats, the way she sleeps, her body changes. And it's a concept to a father. You see the belly, you watch your partner experiencing it, but you don't become a father till you hold that baby in your arms. And then it's, oh crap, now what? So I think fathers are intimidated a lot by that. And if they didn't have a strong male figure in their own life, that's extremely difficult for them to adapt to. And we find a lot of fathers have difficulty being second fiddle too. That baby becomes priority and they don't like having to take a back seat. So that's another thing, that those relationship issues that come up after the baby, our nurses try to talk about that beforehand. But I still think they're like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then it gets there and they're like, oh, here it is. Here, this is a real thing. So we will engage the father to our best of our ability. And Adam has a really good way of doing that because he has that father perspective. It's not a woman talking to a man about how to be a father. Yes.
How, do all of your nurses in your group, are they all mothers themselves?
Yes.
Okay. And do they drive their own cars or does St. Luke's provide cars?
St. Luke's pays mileage. They drive their own cars.
If a client starts with a nurse, they stay with that nurse the whole time through.
If we can manage it. If they stay within our service area, yes. If they move to Berks County, we have to transfer it to that agency in Berks County if the client wants to be transferred. If they move to New York, we have the ability to transfer it to another NFP, but like if we have a client that lives in Easton and they go to Allentown, that nurse will go with them. So she's driving a lot.
It would seem that you're, I mean, just going into the situations that your nurses go into, which are volatile and, you know,
Very.
do they ever feel threatened? Are they safe? Or do they ever send more than one to a call or?
We have a safety system in place. If they're going somewhere for the first time, or if, say, the client texts them and said, hey, can you visit me at my friend's house? Oh, sure. Where's the address? And you pull up and you're like, I don't know. I have nurses call me, pretty regularly and say, this is the address I'm at. I'm about to go in. Okay. And I mark the time down. Then I'll call them in about 5 or 10 minutes. And their response to me is going to be, check the green folder, which means everything's good. Check the yellow folder, call me back, I'm not sure. And if they're saying red, they shouldn't even be in the house anymore. Like if there's something that sets their spidey senses off, they should be. And I've told nurses too, if you're pulling up to a place you've never been before, you have an emergency, you will be in touch to reschedule. If the hair on the back of your neck is standing up, listen to that. And we find too that the families tend to be very protective of the nurse as well. And I have a nurse that when she goes into certain neighborhoods, she'll carry diapers just to kind of point out that I'm the baby nurse, and I'm not a threat. But yeah, no, those are real, especially sometimes when you're going into homes where there's domestic violence. It's hard to have a conversation about it when he's sitting there or the partner is sitting there. So there's a lot of subtle assessments going on. And one of the big things that we're finding is happening too is a lot of people have cameras in their homes now. So it's really hard to have a sensitive conversation with a client. Somebody could be listening. So a lot of times they'll text it to them under their breath or say something under their breath, like, is there a camera? Because they want to make sure they're not putting that person at risk. What if the father's at work, but he's watching the camera? And now that is a modern day twist to NFP that, the nurses are on high alert for now too. And they bring it up with the client too, that we recognize this is normal in households these days. And we just want to make sure we're not discussing something sensitive that someone else could be potentially listening to. So have a safe word, mistletoe, whatever, to tell me, okay, don't talk about that or something like that.
Is there a special training program that these nurses
absolutely
prepare them to go into these potentially volatile situations?
Yes. Well, not so much the volatile situations. As a program, we bring in speakers to talk about things. We just had an education day and we brought someone in from Crime Victims Council, and she talked about human trafficking, things to be alert for, things to be aware of, how to talk to somebody who's been trafficked. What would you say? Like, we don't know. So and I think a lot of those trainings help them because it points things out to them they might not have thought was a red flag before. We've brought the police departments in to talk about, being safe in the communities. And we have nurses that will say, I want to enroll this client, but I'm not comfortable. There's no parking. I got to walk down 3 alleys to get to their door. Can we meet at the library? Can we do this virtually? We try to serve every mom who wants to have the program, but we also have to, when I was in the field, I had a referral and I pulled up Google Earth and front window had plywood over it and there was crime tape on the front porch. And I went, no, thank you. No, thank you. Not going there.
Over it.
And when I went out during my interview process to do an observation before I accepted the position, I said, what's the dress code? You know, what should I wear? And our director was my supervisor at the time. And she said, well, wear sneakers in case you need to run. I'm like, are you trying to sell this job? Or, you know, listen, if we don't laugh about some of these things, we get, we have to cry. But there's a lot of support in NFP. Our nurses meet with their manager. There's 2 managers at St. Luke's. We each are assigned 6 nurses, and we meet with them weekly. And we're talking about their clients and how what's going on is affecting them. And what are they taking home with them at night? What are they losing sleep about? Because it's hard to turn it off once you get home. We tell them, turn off your phone when you get home. Turn it off on the weekends. You're not available 24/7 just because they have your cell phone number. They have a work phone, but turn it off. We really, really pay high attention to work-life balance and how we can be flexible with the nurses so they can do this job and protect their own mental well-being.
You have you mentioned about the police roundabout way. I'm a retired police
Oh, there.
officer.
Yeah.
But does your organization have a good rapport with the law enforcement, the police departments, sheriff's departments within both Lehigh and Northampton?
I would say that fortunately, we haven't had to have relationships with them. I mean, there have been situations where I can think of, I'm here 10 years, 2 situations in 10 years where the nurse had to call 911 while they were at a visit for safety reasons. I'm happy to say we haven't had to have that relationship, but like I said, they've been supportive in their community outreach and coming and speaking to the nurses. And if we have questions about trends in the community, like violence trends and things like that, they're very helpful in those regards as well, because they recognize our nurses are, boots on the ground.
Yeah. I can remember getting calls from the children, some of the investigators.
Yeah.
Asking if a police officer could meet them at a location. And I did that on a number of occasions, not only as a uniformed officer, but even more so when I was an investigator and handled a juvenile case.
The one difference that tends to be really big between children and youth and NFP is that when those caseworkers are going in, they're required to see them. They're required to answer that door. Our program's voluntary. So they're choosing to let our nurse in the home. There's a big difference between when the government or the county is saying you have to do this and if the client has a choice. So we find that because it's so relationship based, our nurses really can, and even the clients will say, look, my uncle's here today and he's a little wacky. Let's reschedule. Like they get really in tune to what they think might be a risk as well, because they know their own households.
Tina, thank you so much for joining us, and it was enlightening. And every time I hear a little bit more, I'm sure everybody else is the same way about your program. It just drives home the fact that how valuable that really is. James?
I just have one final question. How can we, as the Kiwanis Club of Easton and individual members, support the incredible work you and your nurses are doing?
Janet shared with me that there's a grant application coming out in January for your foundation funds, I think. We'll be applying for that. We'll go to our coat project. If anybody's interested in helping with our Winter Wishes project, that's always needed as well. So I can keep you abreast of projects that are coming up. We do family engagement events. We try to do twice a year. We go to the pumpkin patch, we go to strawberry picking or the zoo, which costs some money. So sometimes we need funding or grants for those kinds of things. So as they come up, we can definitely share things that are coming up, but we do plan to apply for the grant this year for our coat project next year. We have to build the funds up before we have to buy the coats. And we start that in like July, August.
Well, thank you, Tina, so much, and happy holidays to you and your family and your crew at Nurse Family Practitioners. We certainly appreciate you coming to talk with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
You're always welcome. I'm sure Janet will be in touch with you.
Yeah.
And now you can enjoy your lunch. Stay long. Hudson, would you just give a quick, just a little blurb? I found out we were speaking today that before the meeting, just published a book. And she has a book that is going to be, that is in Amazon at the present time. So you can just give her if you're looking for a little publicity, here's the place to get it.
So the book is a. Yeah, you know what? I could talk like this, right? Okay. So the book is called Beyond the Chair.
Sure.
I've been a licensed cosmetologist for almost 29 years in real time. And I find that I've been very successful at this business for 30 years almost. Yeah, I'm very old. And, you know, I want to give back. So I wrote this book, and it's also like a guide with lots of tools about the business for the, you know, the upcoming generation that's coming up in the business to be able to have the book as a tool. So the book is basically about the beginning stage of my career and mastering it with fashion, and was able to sustain myself for that long, especially in New York City, where I was majority of the time, and such a competitive state because it's a party state. So you have tons of salon. And in order to even have a successful business there, you have to be given something that's totally different from what everybody else is, you know, offering. My service was, I almost was running a 24-hour service business, which was not easy, a lot of work. I go to work, you know, take care of my family in the morning, open my salon in New York. I don't get out till 2 o'clock in the next morning. And I've done that for years. So I really wanted to give back to the community of, you know, people don't work that hard no more in this business, honestly. And this is why, you know, people are not successful in it. So I'm able to share that in my book, and hope that the younger generation will definitely use it as a tool and blueprint to be successful as well in shorter time.
Well, wishing you all the success with your book. And you know what would be nice when your book comes out, because I know there are a couple changes made to the cover, right?
Absolutely.
And then-
This is the
yeah.
temporary cover because it launched just 5 days ago. And because it's on Amazon, we had to come up, my team had to come up with something because we had a launch date and everything. So this is the cover we use temporary for the launch date, which means still a lot because our salon, we do every texture hair. You walk in, I don't care what kind of hair, coarse, fine, straight, you know, we're able to service everyone. And that's how you really become successful. You turn no one away. So we were able to use that cover, but it will be a chair on that cover by itself that says Beyond the Chair. That really kind of go with the title. And so we just learned today by my coach that we hit bestseller as of yesterday. And it just launched in 5 days. Yeah. So that's really
We can
good.
introduce you as New York Times best-selling author.
Seller. Correct.
Does that fit the bill? Good.
Isn't that
Very good.
crazy? Yes.
Well, you know, when
That's a good wig you have on back.
That's not me.
in the spring, as
Yeah.
things move along for you, you could be our featured speaker at a luncheon and
Absolutely.
tell us how things are going and
Yes.
more about it. Great to hear. So all the best.
Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. and
Yeah.
we have,
Absolutely. Yeah,
yep. So we got 2 authors, and I'm sure more will come along as well.
that's right.
Thank you very much.